This is a true horrifying story, part 26. In part 25, I spoke about the risks behind the most dangerous book, Shams al-Ma'arif. This is your final warning. Do not buy this book, do not read this book. Many viewers have asked me, why have I said the book's name? As a content creator and a true storyteller, I cannot provide information without a solid reference. And for those who doubt the information that was shared about this book, Mu'min Abu Mecca confirmed my video and confirmed the dangers behind this book. He also shared a story about the book himself, and he warned his viewers not to go anywhere near it. This story took place in Egypt in the year 2013. Kuwaiti man was intrigued about this book. He never had interest to practice black magic, but he wanted to study the book. He met someone online that has original copies of this book located in Alexandria, Egypt. He flew to Egypt the same week and met with the man selling the book. He purchased the book and he extended his stay for a whole week to finish it. He wanted to study it in Egypt and then get rid of it before he flies back to Kuwait. On the first night, he read a big chunk of the book and he went through some rituals but couldn't feel anything. He closed the book and went to bed. The feeling was very off in his hotel room. Kinda felt like someone was laying next to him on bed. The man wakes up, has breakfast, and continues reading the book. Out of nowhere, things in the bedroom would start to tip over and move. His spine started to shiver. He immediately decides that the time is up. He got an answer that was real. He called the man that he got the book from, and he told him, "Keep the money I gave you, but just take the book back." He drove to that man with the book. He handed the book over to him and he drove back to his hotel. He stayed in Egypt for a couple more days and then flew back to Kuwait. When he reached home to Kuwait, he started unpacking his bag. He finds the book, Shams al-Ma'arif, inside his suitcase. The same book he was reading in Egypt. The man was certain that he only took one copy and he returned that one copy back. But once you tie yourself around rituals inside this book, the presence within this book will never let you go. The dangers this book holds cannot be undone without religious cleansing. This man suffered horrific experiences for a whole year because he read the book. Not only read the book, but he also practiced the rituals and he did not complete it. Stay away from Shams al-Ma'arif. This is a true horrifying story, part 27. In part 25 and 26, I warned you guys about the most dangerous book that was ever written. A man that goes by the name Samar al-Ruhani practices black magic. And he learned how to get in touch with the world of jinns using the book Shams al-Ma'arif. On his early days, he was practicing rituals by reading verses from this book. And the verses from this book made objects move around in directions ordered by him. Now, I thought the video was fake, but I've dug up a little research about this man and I confirmed that he is indeed a person that practices black magic. By reading or listening to these verses, you might open doors that are very hard to close. So stay away from this book. Now, I will have the video played on mute because it's very dangerous to have the words spoken or listened to from your phone speaker. I will publish part 28 very soon, and I will tell you guys about the dangers of another book that people have mentioned in my comments. Based on some research I've done, people call it more dangerous than Shams al-Ma'arif. So stay tuned. This is a true horrifying story, part 28. In parts 25, 26, and 27, I warned you all about a dangerous book that opens doors to the world of jinns named Shams al-Ma'arif. And in part 27, I told you that there's another book that goes way beyond Shams al-Ma'arif. The book I will talk about was written way before Shams al-Ma'arif. The author of Shams al-Ma'arif had to derive and learn from this book in the first place. It is the first manual for black magic that was ever written. This book is called Kitab al-Ghazali. written by Abu Hamid al-Ghazali in the 11th century. Many religious scholars say that Imam al-Ghazali was not the author of this book, but no one is 100% sure about who the author is till this day. The difference between al-Ghazali and Shams al-Ma'arif is that Shams al-Ma'arif is more technical. Many chapters teach readers all sorts of different rituals and how each ritual works. Al-Ghazali, on the other hand, is a small book that is one ritual from the start to finish. It is so dangerous, I have seen imams putting on gloves while touching this book. If you read this book, you will tie yourself around a ritual that puts you in contact with the world of jinns until the day you die. Al-Ghazali is a very lethal book. Now, I don't have to warn you guys about reading it, because you won't find it, and because no original copy exists anywhere. There's a bunch of rip-off PDFs online that claim to be the original copies, but I doubt it. Ancient governments have burned copies of this book, and with the very few copies of this book left in the world, whoever puts it up online, it usually gets taken down. This shows you the difference between these two books. One of the copies left is known to be somewhere in Oman, and the person that owns it is an old man that sells black magic services. The jinns that he's in contact with are a few of the most powerful jinns in their world. People would go to him, pay him money so he can cast spells on people they despise, and he would cause unspeakable harm to people by using black magic. All this man needs to harm you is a piece of your DNA. It could be a swab of your spit, a tissue that you used, a piece of your hair, or even a picture of you. Only a few people living among us today have the capability of causing such harm to others. They're the ones that passionately tied themselves around books such as Al-Ghazali. We might see these characters in movies, but I assure you that these people do exist. The Book of God always destroys black magic, but it's never that easy. A'udhu billah. If you ever came across an ancient book that reads Al-Ghazali, do not touch it. Only by touching it, you might lure jinns closer to you for a very long time. This is a true horrifying story, part 29. This is an old famous story known as The Boy and the Jinn. This story took place in Nottingham, England in the early 90s. There is a massive abandoned building that has 120 rooms, many dorms, and very big halls. The building was bought to start an Islamic madrasa, meaning school for boys. They renovated the place and scheduled classes. When the school started, all the students were warned and restricted from accessing the west side of the building. No reasons given, just no one is allowed to go to the west side of the school. One of the students, let's give him a name. His name is Imran. Imran was 13 years old at the time, and he's from Bangladesh. He does not speak a word of English nor Arabic. The only language Imran spoke was Bengali. Imran was a quiet kid. He didn't have any friends. He always walked alone, sleeps alone, and eats alone. One day, Imran strays off to the west side of the building on his own, the side that he was restricted from accessing. He comes back after a while with a Quran in his hand. He goes to the Quran teacher and tells him, "Test me in Arabic." Remember, he does not speak a word in any other language but Bengali. The teacher laughs it off and starts to test him out. Verse after verse, he realizes that this student memorized the whole Quran efficiently, and everyone was extremely shocked about this. On that same night, all the students head to their dorms and go to sleep. During the middle of the night, they banged the principal's room, screaming, "There's a jinn, there's a jinn." The principal found out that while the students were asleep, the walls in their dorm would bang and scratch, and there will be voices coming out the walls saying the name Imran. Then it all added up. They figured out that Imran was possessed by a jinn that was a hafiz of the Quran. So an Islamic exorcism wouldn't really do much. The sheikh would put his hand on Imran and recite the ayat, but the jinn would come back with the following verse to break the exorcism. The ruqya cannot work on a jinn that memorized the Quran. And the jinn himself is challenging the raqi on who knows the Quran better. One of the imams that witnessed this whole situation asked to send Imran back home for 1 month, and that should treat his situation. They send him home. He comes back after 1 month, not knowing any Arabic, not knowing any English, doesn't know anything about the Quran, the same old quiet kid. And no one ever dared going near the west side of the building after what happened to Imran. This is a true horrifying story, part 30. This story took place in Medina, Saudi Arabia in the year 2001. And the person who said this story is Dr. Yasir Qadhi. He's someone that is known in the community of the Islamic Da'iyas. There are exorcists from all religions, Muslims, Christians, and Jewish, and their job is to perform an exorcism session on a person who is possessed by a demon or a jinn. When Dr. Yasir was a student, he studied in Medina. There was a known exorcist that practiced ruqya for many years, and Dr. Yasir wanted to learn from him. Back at the dorm of the Islamic college, there was a student that is a fresh convert, just recently converted to Islam. He barely knows anything about the religion, small bits of the Quran, does not know the ahadith, and doesn't know the big scholars in Islam. One day, the students were reading Quran out loud back at the dorm, and this new convert student starts to scream and roll on the ground. They knew he was possessed, so they called Dr. Yasir. Now remember, Dr. Yasir was still a student back then. He was not an expert in exorcism. He goes there and has a 2-hour session of ruqya, the ruqya that he recently learned, trying to kick out the demon out of this kid's body. As he reads Quran, he would see an alien-like movement on the kid's body. His skin would ripple up and down. A human being cannot do this intentionally. He would follow the movement with his hands reading the Quran, and you would see it move somewhere else. After the session was over, the kid looked fine, and they got lunch for everyone to eat. They say Bismillah, and they ask the new convert to join them for lunch. He said, "I'm not hungry, it's okay." As they were eating, one of the students drops a piece of his food on the ground and ignores it. The convert student immediately jumps like a snake, picks it up and gobbles it down with his left hand. Dr. Yasir lets the food go and gets up, knowing that this kid is still possessed. He tries to intimidate this demon by shouting, "I'm gonna bring Sheikh bin Uthaymeen to read on you." Now Sheikh bin Uthaymeen is a huge Islamic scholar, and he passed away around that time in January 2001. This kid laughs hysterically with a raspy demonic voice. He gets up and he asks, "Are you going to bring him back from the dead?" This is when they all realized that this wasn't a human entity that spoke. How can this new convert know who Sheikh bin Uthaymeen is? And why would he say he's not hungry but ate food that dropped on the ground? And how was his skin rippling? Jinns can harm you, and the harm is tangible. This is not a joke. Being possessed is very real. Even to exorcists, it's very dangerous, and only people with very strong faith can do it. This is a true horrifying story, part 31. This story was submitted by Faisal bin Salah. My name is Faisal bin Salah. I'm 34 years old and I've been married for 12 years. We have 2 daughters. One is 5 years old and the other one is 10 months old. I set up a company in a free zone, so we stayed in Dubai for 2 months, from July to September. We stayed at a 1-bedroom apartment at Hayat Regency, Dubai Creek. It all started from day one with very strange things happening. My wife woke up one morning with brown spots on her hand. It's believed to be a sign that someone attempted to make sihr, but it has failed. I told my wife that it must be something else, do not worry. But she was very convinced, because we both witnessed the lights turning on and off on random nights. And these were signs that we believed that had to do with jinns or black magic. On that same night, I started growling very loud. I got up, jumped from one side of the room to the other, where my wife was still on her prayer rug, and I strangled my wife. She immediately realized what was going on, and she started yelling Ayat al-Kursi. While she was reading Ayat al-Kursi, I lost the strength in my hands, and then I started gaining consciousness. We went to the other side of the apartment, and I told her, quiet. Why are you yelling? We're waking everyone up." She didn't believe who I was at that state that I was in. She panicked, and she told me what happened in the bedroom. I needed some time to realize what has happened as well. The next day, I called my mother. She knows a lot about Islam, and she said that we had to leave that apartment immediately. Around 8 p.m. on that same day, I told my wife that I'll be going shopping. She said, "The girls and I are gonna come with you. We're not staying here alone." We all left the house together, and we got back around 10 p.m. We came back and saw all the lights off, but we remembered that we kept them on, cause we left it with the key card in the slot. When we turned the lights on, all hell broke loose. The kitchen cabinets were swinging front and back, all the dishes and glasses were being thrown. It was very loud, scary, and traumatizing to look at. We quickly run downstairs, report this incident to the manager, and we ask for our money back. We called the manager upstairs to witness the situation, and he believed his own eyes, because he was a Muslim as well. The apartment was wrecked and the doors were still slamming front and back. We then moved to another apartment in Palm Jumeirah. A month later, I was sitting on the couch scrolling through my phone. My wife came up to me at 3 a.m. and she told me, "Do you know what Sophia just said in her sleep?" Sophia is the 5-year-old daughter. She said boiling water in a Moroccan dialect. Sophia only spoke Dutch and English. That was a warning not to go back again. This is a true horrifying story, part 32. In parts 25, 26, and 27, I warned you all about the most dangerous book that was ever written, Shams al-Ma'arif. This book is a portal to the world of jinns and demons. There's a person that read this book, and this person faces traumatic incidents every single day. She's a woman from Jordan. She graduated university being the top graded student. She is a genius. She has read hundreds of novels. She had a strong passion for books. She heard about this book called Shams al-Ma'arif. She couldn't live knowing that there's a book that has a strong story behind it without reading it. After many months of trying to find the real copy of this book, she heard about an old man that lives in Jordan that had an ancient copy of Shams al-Ma'arif. She got in touch with him and he refused to sell the book, but she didn't quit. It took her many weeks to finally buy the book off of him. She goes back home and immediately starts reading the book. After she read the first few chapters of the book, she felt kinda hungry, so she decided to go to the kitchen and prepare some food and then continue reading. As she goes into the kitchen, she opens the oven and a gale of fire burns her face. She spent 3 weeks in the burn unit rehabilitation. The oven was switched off. No one knows till this day where the flames came from. She had multiple plastic surgeries to recover her facial features, but till this day, her face is not what it used to be. After recovery, she goes home weeks later and she looks for the book, knowing that the jinn was the reason she was harmed. She tried to find the book for many days, but it was lost. Years go by. She was home watching TV one day. She came across an Islamic channel that had a live interview program. An old man was being interviewed on this channel. He was asked by the imams about the dangers of a black magic book that he owns. His body was very unusual and his face was burned off. He got a book from under the table and he said this: "I once sold this book to a young woman a long time ago, and the demons warned me not to stop my rituals, and if I gave the book away, they would burn my face and they would burn hers. And after I gave the book, I woke up the next day without my normal face. And the book I sold to that woman was right there laying next to me on bed. I knew that it was the jinns that brought the book back to me. And this is when I strengthened my iman and I quit black magic." Quote, this was all said on TV, and the poor girl was just standing there, watching the same man speak. The man on TV was the man that gave her the book. The book he showed on TV was the book he handed to her. That was the book that was lost, the book that she was looking for.